I am an economist. In fact, my entire career has been as an economist working in finance. At a certain point, I realized it wasn't what I liked, and not just the work I was doing, but also the way of working for someone else, and that I wanted to do something of my own, something that belonged to me. When I had gathered a bit of knowledge about YouTube, well, not just a bit, a lot of knowledge about YouTube, a passion I had, which was Formula One, and I saw that it was possible to make a living from this, I decided to go all in. This is probably my 5th or 6th YouTube channel. Another duo I'm really interested in for 2025 and will be watching closely is the Haas duo, an unexpected and maybe even controversial choice. Hi, I'm Kubo, and the other day I made a post in the community tab asking you to leave your questions for this special for 30,000 subscribers. So let's get to the point, and here are your questions. Lucky Play 2023 asks, "What's your name and how old are you? My name is Mauricio and I just turned 29. Navarrete13 asks, "Who was your childhood idol?" Actually, the answer is divided into 3 parts. I don't have an idol in Formula One. In fact, I started watching Formula One when I was a bit older, so I don't really have a childhood idol from that. My real idol, let's say, is my dad. Not just from my childhood, but even today. In fact, he's my inspiration and the person I look up to from the day I was born until today, and forever. And in sports, Rafael Nadal. He's an athlete I've admired since I was very, very young. Even though he's already retired, what he did will always be marked for me. Is 4873 question. How and when did your interest in Formula One start? This question's a bit complex. My dad has always been a fan of Formula One, and ever since I was a kid, he tried to get me into the sport and to like it and all that. But I think that when I was younger, I was a bit, I don't know if afraid of cars, or maybe I just wasn't that close to them. And it never really convinced me. In fact, it was only about 5 or 6 years ago. We were having breakfast, I remember it perfectly, and there was a race on. Which one? I have no idea. I remember my dad explained to me at that moment that Hamilton was in first place, but he had a bad strategy. Since his tires were more worn, the second place driver would overtake him and so on. So that part of the strategy was what caught my attention and in some way started getting me into the sport that I became interested in. What really hooked me was hearing the story of Leclerc when he was going to Formula One. The whole story with his father, with Jules Bianchi, and, well, I'll talk a bit more about it in a question that comes later. Who is your favorite driver? Who is your favorite team? Who is the driver you hate the most? And who is the team you hate the most? My current favorite driver is Charles Leclerc. In fact, as I mentioned, his story really hooked me from the beginning, and it was almost what finally got me into Formula One. That, plus the fact that when I was very young, I always heard about Michael Schumacher. Schumacher, the color red, red, red. Not only did Leclerc end up being my favorite driver, who happens to race for Ferrari now, but Ferrari also became my favorite team. Historically, the driver I like and admire the most is Ayrton Senna. Obviously, because of my age, I didn't see him race, but documentaries, stories, replays, and so on have been enough for him to be a figure that I also see in the sport as the best. For me, he's the best. And actually, I'm gonna put the video we made about him here. The next thing is whether there's any Formula One driver I hate. The truth is, no. In my videos, I have videos talking about Stroll, Mazepin, Ocon, but I don't actually hate any of them. I think they've objectively earned the dislike and hatred of others. And that's exactly what I try to show in those videos, but I don't actually hate anyone. I don't know them, so honestly, they don't have any impact on me. In the comments, I also saw something about McLaren and Ferrari because of the scandals they've had. Honestly, no. I mean, there are a lot of people behind the team, and I don't know. In the end, it's an institution, people change, and in the end, none of them are responsible for what those before them did, so no. Mr. Sovietic asks, "What's your favorite Formula One circuit, and which one do you like the least?" Well, my favorite Formula One circuit is Spa-Francorchamps. In fact, there's a story behind this. I've always liked the layout, the races. I think it's a great circuit to race on, but it's also the only circuit that, up to this day, I've visited, the only one I've been to. In fact, the photo on my channel is from Spa. We were lucky that when we went to visit the circuit, it wasn't during a race, but there were some practice sessions, demonstrations, and at least we got to see several cars go by, race, and they were hours, I would say. So anyway, I'll leave you some videos here as well, but it was super fun, really interesting, and for me it was a dream come true. And the one I like the least is Miami. As such, I don't like the layout. It's like a mix between a street circuit and a permanent circuit. There aren't that many overtaking opportunities as such. It has a horrible chicane, which honestly doesn't work for the race, and I don't know. I feel like in the end, they've brought it in mostly for the show, for the spectacle. But as such, it doesn't feel like a race for Formula One fans, but rather for people who just want to go and show up. Which circuit would you add that's not on the calendar? I would add Indianapolis. Actually, it's a bit of a strange answer because of what happened in 2005 and all that. In any case, I would take out Miami to put in Indianapolis, obviously fixing the tire issue so that something similar doesn't happen again. Considering that Zandvoort is going to be taken off the calendar, I think the banked corner is something that should be in Formula One. And the circuit that gives us that the most right now is Zandvoort. So I think there's a good spot for Indianapolis there. Sebastian Ignacio Eterovich Roderick asks, what's your favorite driver pairing for 2025? Well, considering that I'm a Ferrari fan and also my current favorite driver is Leclerc. It's Leclerc with Hamilton. I've never been the biggest fan of Hamilton, but I think it's going to be interesting. I think they're going to have a good fight, and well, I hope Leclerc comes out ahead. Here's another 2025 pairing I really like and will watch closely. It's a bit unexpected and even controversial, the one from Haas. I really like the pairing of Ocon with Behrman, actually. I'm quite a fan of Behrman. I've been following him for a few years now. I would love it if, when Hamilton retires, Behrman joins Ferrari's main team. Ocon is already an experienced driver. I think it's going to be good to see how Behrman measures up against him. And if what usually happens with Ocon's teammates happens and they crash, or if there are just controversies, I think that's also going to be good for the show. MaxLang19 asks, are you going to make a video talking about Argentine motorsport? It's not in my immediate plans, but I have a video on Franco Colapinto for you to watch. If you're interested in a video about Carlos Reutemann or Juan Manuel Fangio, let me know in the comments and I'll consider it. Lautaro Fuzili 449 asks, what was your dream when you were a kid? I had two dreams. The first was to be a professional hockey player. Since I was very young, from the age of 6, I played field hockey. I remember there was a notebook where we wrote down our dreams when we turned 10. And in that one, I wrote, I want to be a professional hockey player, which I partially achieved. And the other was to be an engineer, simply because my dad was an engineer and I wanted to be like him. Patrick Starr, 652, question, if not discussing Formula One, what would it be? The answer is broader than it seems. My first choice would be to talk about anime. And actually, I've already done it. This isn't the first channel I've had. This is a bit of my story, but this is probably between the 5th and 6th YouTube channel I've had. Obviously, all the channels have taught me and I've learned several things to get to where I am now, but the first channel I made was about anime. At first, I'm not going to say which one it is, but if it's something you're interested in, leave it in the comments and maybe I'll do it. I'm very fond of that topic. It was obviously what inspired me to make YouTube videos, what got me into this world, and ultimately what brought me to my current profession. There are a lot of questions about whether I watch other categories. If I watch the World Endurance Championship, if I watch Rally, if I watch MotoGP, and so on. And to answer them all at once, the answer is no. As such, it's not that I really watch other categories. I watch specific things, like the Indianapolis 500, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, but as such, I don't really watch other categories that much. It's not Formula One as such. But the categories that I do follow every weekend and I don't miss a single race, not even the sprint or qualifying or anything, are Formula 2 and Formula 3. Captain Luquitas asks, why did you start making content about Formula 1 and not something else? Formula 1 wasn't my first YouTube channel. I think that when I started, I didn't have the passion for this sport that I have today, but I always wanted to make a YouTube channel. Like I said, I've had several over the years, but I felt like none of them were going to take off because I couldn't find that passion for something that I liked so much, like I do now. So when I already liked it so much, when I would wake up every morning to watch the races, when I already knew the life stories of all the drivers, that's when I said, maybe this could be it. And that's where this channel actually started. Something interesting is that the focus of the channel is totally different from the focus it had at the beginning. When I started the channel, it was meant to be educational, focusing on questions like, what is Formula One? Why are there 3 types of compounds? What happens when it rains? And other questions people might ask. Almost by chance, I made my first entertainment video, let's say, because, I don't know, I just wanted to put out a video and it did well. Then I said, well, I'll make one more, and that one did well too. And I said, I'll keep making entertainment videos until one of them doesn't do well. This all happened because I doubted my ability to create entertaining videos people would enjoy and get hooked on. But little by little, I started to realize that I had learned much more than I actually thought. And well, that's it. Up until now, we're still doing that, and it probably won't change. If you've supported me from the start, I'm launching a newsletter with daily emails discussing races, upcoming events, pre-race and post-race updates. When there aren't any races, I'll send you an interesting Formula One story to keep you entertained. And these will be emails I'll send every day, whether it's Saturday, Sunday, Christmas, my birthday, your birthday, any day. If you're not part of the community, subscribe to the channel and sign up for the newsletter in the description or pinned comment. 978167 question. Besides Formula One, is there any other hobby you like? Do you have a favorite series, movie, video game, or anime? And what kind of music do you listen to? When it comes to hobbies, actually, I have quite a few. My main hobby is training jiu-jitsu. It's a martial art, I don't know if you know it, but it's something I really enjoy. I like getting together with my friends, we do all sorts of things. We play paddle, we play poker. We just hang out together, play, I don't know, Mario Kart, whatever. I also really enjoy watching rap battles. Lately, I've been spending quite a bit of time racing go-karts. And something else I've really come to enjoy is reading, especially to educate myself. When it comes to series and movies, my favorite non-animated series is Peaky Blinders. My favorite movies are The Big Short and, for animated, Perfect Blue. I have a favorite anime, yes, it's One Piece. And if I have a favorite video game, currently I don't play that many video games, but at the time, the whole Assassin's Creed saga was something I found incredible. Not just for the game, but because I learned a lot of history from it. To answer the question, what music do I listen to? The answer is a bit cliche, actually a little bit of everything. But what I've been listening to lately, which are actually some of my favorite bands and singers, are Eminem, Michael Jackson, Guns N' Roses, and so on. Nico P. Tress F asks, where do you get the information for your videos? Do you find Wikipedia particularly useful? Actually, every video involves a lot of research. Now I'm trying to put out about one video a week, but the research happens for several videos at the same time, because the process is much longer. And I try to first look for documentaries if, let's say, I want to talk about a particular race, I look for that specific race and watch it, and also look for articles on the internet. I use Wikipedia to find specific data, but I never fully trust it. I always verify the info with other sources since Wikipedia is actually what I trust least. And obviously, I also consume a lot of Formula One content. And that's where ideas and information come up that I keep gathering, but in the end, like I said, I always check with at least two sources. Derek Siente 6801 asks, what's your opinion on Checo Perez's performance last season, and what would you expect from him in 2026? Regarding last season, which for those watching this video later was 2024, Checo Perez had a pretty bad performance. I think the car didn't help, but I don't think that's an excuse. In fact, while Verstappen, even if things weren't going amazingly for him or he didn't always get pole, he was always among the top 5. Top 3. Checo Perez not only often stayed in Q1, but also crashed the car in the race and quali. And I think what happened this past year is indefensible. And what do I see for the future? Will he come back in 2026? I think so. I believe he'll return with Cadillac. Checo offers them 3 key things. A good driver, because even though he's having a terrible 2024, I think Checo is a good driver. Experience, which is important for a team. And finally, the money. Everyone knows that Checo Perez brings in a lot of cash, a lot of sponsors, and that's something a new team is obviously going to want. I think his teammate will be chosen from among 3 drivers, unless, I don't know, a rookie suddenly appears this last year. Valtteri Bottas. If they want to go for experience, is the one I see as least likely, but I don't rule it out completely. With Mick Schumacher. It could be a mix between a prospect, let's say, giving him a second chance. He's not exactly a prospect, and some experience because he had a couple of years in Formula One. And the one I think is the most unexpected is Paul Aron. I think with the signing of Colapinto, Alpine is a bit off balance in that sense. They just hired another reserve driver, so I don't think Paul Aron is really involved anymore. It wouldn't surprise me if they choose someone experienced like Checo Perez and a young talent like Paul Aron. Rena T0. Question. What's your favorite comeback in Formula One? Actually, I have 2. One not very recent, let's say, and one quite recent. The not-so-recent one happened in '88 in Japan, the comeback that Senna had in Suzuka, and with which he won his first title. For those who haven't seen it, he had a bad start, dropped down to 14th place and started to come back, and ended up winning the race and becoming champion for the first time. And the second one is by Max Verstappen in Brazil in 2024. His comeback in Interlagos was just insane to me. I remember that at the time I said, "This is a drive like Senna." They said I was exaggerating, but then I started hearing it more often. Regardless of what they say, for me it was. Starting from 17th place, overtaking all the cars, getting to first, and setting like 20 fastest laps in a row in the rain. It's something that not every driver can do, especially considering I didn't have the fastest car. So Verstappen in 2024 and Senna in '88, Pan Yeda asks, do you think Stroll will be the breakout driver in 2025?
Oh, Stroll is out. Stroll is out.
Oh! No!
No. Sack asks, why Kubo? Actually, it's a nickname I've had since I was a kid. My school friends have called me Kubo since I was about 11 years old. So naturally, Formula One, Kubo. To the cube. It's not the most creative thing in the world, but it works. JewClap2000 asks, do you follow other Formula One or motorsport YouTubers? And if so, which ones? Well, there are several. In fact, in Spanish, the one I follow the most is Skyland Racing. Actually, I've talked a couple of times with Ilio, and he's a really great guy, a great person. So, shout out to him. I also really like Senor Adrian in Spanish. I think he's pretty funny. He has a very entertaining way of doing summaries, and it's very different from what most people do. So yeah, it entertains me, and I honestly think what he does is incredible. Then there are other channels that are a bit different, and in fact, they're in English, which are, if you like dark humor, Rocket-Powered Mohawk. It's a really good channel. Matt and Tommy with V1. They have a podcast, I think it's weekly, or they release it with every race, which is also super entertaining, super informative. And yeah, it's something I like. And moving a bit away from the type of content I make, I also follow sim racing quite a lot. And on that side, I follow Jarno Opmeer a lot, who, well, has been champion twice. And actually, not only I like that, obviously, he's a great driver, but he's also very entertaining as a YouTuber. So he mixes the highest level of competition in driving with being someone entertaining, which I think is amazing. And to finish, 2, Photo Racer, which I think has incredible organization. He's currently running a championship. I think it's amazing how not only does he develop his channel, but he also brings the sim racing community together. So, incredible. And the last one, who is someone I've also talked to, is Jorge99. I really like him. He himself says he's not the best sim racing driver, but to me, he's the most entertaining, honestly. Eldro YT asks, what is the most challenging circuit in F1 and why? Who is history's most underrated driver? How do you think F1 can be more accessible? And what is your favorite moment in Formula F1 history? I think the most challenging circuit is Monaco. I don't think there's much debate about that, not only because of my own thoughts or the narrow walls and constant pressure, but also because the drivers themselves say so. There must be a reason. The most underrated driver for me is Jenson Button. I think a lot of people say he only got the title because of the team he was with, but I think he was a great driver anyway. I think that under different circumstances, he could have been champion too. And obviously, if you don't have the car, you're not going to make it. So, Jenson Button. I think the most accessible way now for new fans is to give content creators a bit more freedom. I think Formula One has taken many steps forward in being more open and letting people talk about it, giving more exposure to the drivers, Drive to Survive, and so on. But I think they limit content creators too much with copyright, which is basically free publicity. And it's something they censor, which honestly I don't understand why. What's your favorite circuit? Well, in technical terms, Coda seems to me to be one of the best in dry conditions. I think it has everything. It has elevation changes, it has several overtaking opportunities, it has a very technical third sector, and I love it. And in general, I think Interlagos, it already has everything, but adding the rain makes it incredible for me. And the last one, what's my favorite moment? It's Brazil 91 Senna's first victory at Interlagos. Almorzovirus 2343 question. What inspired you to become a YouTuber while already working? This question is quite personal, and I posted it in a community tab post. I'm an economist. In fact, my whole career has been as an economist working in finance, but at a certain point I realized it wasn't what I liked. Somehow, I had been told that the path was to study something, work in that field. But eventually I realized it wasn't what I liked. And not just the work I was doing, but also the way of working for someone else. I wanted to do something for myself, something that was mine. So, as I was saying, when I had gathered a bit of knowledge about YouTube, well, not just a bit, a lot of knowledge about YouTube, a passion I had, which was Formula One, and I saw that it was possible to make a living from this, so I decided to go all in. For me, it was very difficult because I was the economist who was leaving his career, his life, and the safe path, let's say, for something riskier. Something that a lot of people told me I was crazy for. A lot of people told me, why do this if you already have stability? Aren't you scared? YouTube doesn't pay, etc. But in the end, I just followed my passion, I followed my dream. Now I'm where I am, and that's it. I'm happy about it. I'm happy to make a living doing what I love. I'm happy to be able to create a community with everyone, which I imagine are the people who will be watching this video. And that's it. Obviously, I'm grateful to everyone who watches the videos, those who comment, those who like, those who insult me, everyone. Honestly, thank you. And that's it. We're going to keep growing the channel. Luciano Caro 5253 asks, if you could make a track with any turns you want, which ones would you choose? First, it would be the CSG Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone. Let's see, they're not in order, but I definitely include these turns straights or others. It would be Eau Rouge and Redillon from Spa. The third sector of Circuit of the Americas is a bit tight and technical, and I like it. Also, when you come out of the penultimate corner, there's a big chance of invalidating your lap in qualifying with track limits, which is something that I think. It's good to always push your limits and take risks until the end. I would add that. The last banked corner is Zandvoort, and I would combine it with the main straight of Interlagos to have that banked exit that Indianapolis used to have and, well, now Zandvoort has. And I like the first braking point. If not, I could also change it for the one in Bahrain, which is also a heavy braking zone, and I don't know, I mean, it allows for a lot of overtaking, dive bombs, and so on. And, well, as such, there are no street circuits. I think their appeal is being on the edge of crashing. If you stayed until here, thank you. Now you know a little more about me. And like I said, every day I'm going to send you an email, so if you don't want to miss any, you can sign up at the link I leave in the description and in the pinned comment. Bye.